Hello, friends, and welcome to Mary Trump's Nerd Avengers. I am Brown Mary Wajatali from Earth 32, filling in for our lovely beloved Mary. She's feeling a bit under the weather. Don't worry, she'll be back on Thursday. But we have a fantastic show for you today. We're on day 23 of the ongoing constitutional crisis as Donald wants to be emperor and king. But, folks, there is a resistance brewing. And also, we're going to talk about America First, which apparently means taking over Gaza and Canada, and some good news as we just witnessed the most awesome Super Black Super Bowl halftime show in history. Let's get to it. Welcome, friends, to day 23 of the ongoing constitutional crisis. I feel like we're in the water planet of Interstellar. Each minute feels like 10 years. I'm not here. I'm joined by the Avengers. We're going to have Norm later. But right now, we got my fabulous Democracy-ish co-host, Danielle Moody. Danielle Moody is the host of the Danielle Moody Show, Democracy-ish. And you can find her where, Danielle? Shamelessly promote yourself. I can't hear you, Danielle.
Me. You can find me on my own YouTube channel, Danielle Moody, and my new Substack, which is exciting that I launched this week. You can find me there, and Mondays and Fridays with Waj, 12 p.m. Eastern.
And we also have Tara Setmeyer, who is the co-founder and CEO of the Seneca Project. Tara, how can people find you and support your work? Be shameless.
Yes, well, thank you guys. It's been a couple weeks, so I've missed you. You can find me, well, more importantly, you can find Seneca Project at Seneca Project US. Our website is senecaproject.us on all the socials. And you can find me at Tara Setmeyer on all the socials. And yeah, please go check out our work. We've got a really awesome new attack video against Elon Musk out.
We'll show it.
Welfare Queen. We're going to show it later. And so, yeah, thank you guys. And it has been a rough 3 weeks for all of us.
We're going to get through it. And we have Norm. Norm has joined us. Everyone say hi to Norm. Norm Ornstein.
Hi, everybody.
Scholar, AI, co-host of Words Matter podcast with Kavita Patel. She's awesome as well. Norm, very quickly, how can people find you, support you? Give a quick shout out to yourself.
So better to go 3 places. Social media. It's at Norm Ornstein, both at I'm still on, I call it Twitter. I will not use that something rated name for it. And on Blue Sky. I will say I joined Threads, but Threads is owned by Meta. And given the vile ownership of Meta, I've just decided not to use it. And I'm staying on Twitter because I've still got, even though there's been a substantial erosion, 225,000 followers. And I like to tweak Musk and the others who are there.
We will bother Musk and the others today. Don't worry.
Okay. And the other is I have joined up with our friends Jen Rubin and Norm Eisen to put pieces on the Contrarian.
On the Contrarian, so new Substack, folks. Please help subscribe and also join, as Danielle said, she finally listened to me and got on Substack. Join up and subscribe to her Substack. We have a lot to talk about today. We're going to get to it. But first, like, subscribe, and please share. Be a super donor. Every donation goes a long way. This is independent media. Mary has built it up from the grassroots. The nerds have helped along. We got Mercedes, our DJ, on the background. Thank you, Mercedes, for everything. And we have you, our community. I see your chats. We all see your chats. And man from the West, 420. Where is Mary? Mary is under the weather. Danielle gave it to me. I gave it to Mary. and apparently it's going throughout the Nerd Avengers, but she'll be back on Thursday. But first, folks, there is a constitutional crisis. We have Donald Trump, who, believe it or not, is doing exactly what he said he would do. This is a man who said that he wants to terminate the Constitution, that he'd be a dictator for a day. And I just want to really quickly tell you some of the examples of his broad overreach. In just 2 weeks, folks, it's been about 2.5 weeks. Donald Trump unilaterally has tried to revoke birthright citizenship. Who needs the 14th Amendment? He has tried to freeze billions in federal funding, despite Congress already allocating the funds. He has shut down federal agencies, including the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. We're going to get into that. He has removed leaders of independent agencies and fired government employees. And he has threatened to deport individuals, yes, even children, because he doesn't want to separate families anymore. He's going to send those kids out as well. This type of disobedience actually has met a small resistance with judges. Federal Judge John McConnell Jr. ruled that Donald's administration directly ignored a court order to release frozen funds, marking the first explicit case of judicial defiance by the White House. But when you have power, who cares about the judiciary and the Constitution? Mercedes, can you play this clip from J.D. Vance all the way back from 2021, please?
I think that what Trump should do, like if I was giving him one piece of advice, fire every single mid-level bureaucrat, every civil servant in the administrative state, replace them with our people. And when the courts, because you will get taken to court, and then when the courts stop you, stand before the country like Andrew Jackson did and say the Chief Justice has made his ruling, now let him enforce it.
All right, Norm, I want you to come here because that was from 2021. And can you connect the dots as to why he specifically chose Andrew Jackson and why that is very, very important for what we're looking at right now, which I believe, and not just me, but legal scholars are saying is a constitutional crisis and one of the most obscene power grabs by a president that we have ever seen in our lifetime.
So why he mentioned Andrew Jackson is that Andrew Jackson famously is said to have said, the Chief Justice has made his ruling, now let him enforce it. In other words, defying the Supreme Court. It turns out that there is very little evidence that Andrew Jackson actually said that, and it is probably apocryphal. Not that Andrew Jackson, who was a bully in his own right, a bombastic bully, might not have done it, but this is the pretext for what we are now seeing, not just with J.D. Vance, but with plenty of people in the Trump orbit and Trump himself defying the courts. And we've already seen one prime instance of this, where we had a restraining order against Trump for freezing spending on all kinds of programs and projects that had been lawfully approved by Congress, and a judge saying you cannot do that. And Trump Trump's lawyers initially saying, okay, and then they kept doing it. And the judge has now responded. I will tell you, Waj, that we have a couple of problems around all of this.
Just a couple, Norm?
Well, around this, a couple in particular. One is that judges don't have armies and judges don't have police. What judges can do if there is a defiance, first of all, is they hope to rely on public opinion around them. That doesn't work very well anymore when it comes to the courts. And it certainly doesn't work when it comes to the Supreme Court, which used to care about public opinion, but doesn't. And most people are simply not aware of this stuff. The second, and related to it, is the U.S. Marshals are presumably those who are protecting the Supreme Court justices, but also have the enforcement authority. The court could go around and arrest people who are guilty of contempt of the court. Donald Trump just replaced the head of the U.S. Marshals with a crony. And frankly, if I were a federal judge defying Trump, I'd be very frightened right now, and I'd be frightened for my family. But at the same time, I doubt very much that the U.S. Marshals are going to do what the courts have asked them to do or would ask them to do. And, what we have here is Trump with a whole lot of his acolytes basically deciding that they can get away with anything. And if that's not a giant step into autocracy, nothing else is.
Tara, this is part and parcel of this unitary executive theory that has been bandied about, especially by conservatives, that says, arguing that the executive has this expansive reach, right? And we see now conservatives openly, the party of law and order and the party of originalism, right? You were a former Republican, now saying, Donald, you've got the power, flex. And so what I was told was the institutions will hold. Let's be civil. Democrats are like, but this is unlawful. Chuck Schumer said, everyone's aroused. Are you not aroused? In this particular moment, Tara, do you have faith in the institutions holding against what Norm just said is an open flex of power and of, honestly, let's be honest, violence, because he pardoned 1,600 people who were violent insurrectionists?
I have to be honest, I worry, because those institutions and guardrails are only as good as the people who are willing to defend and enforce them. So this is uncharted territory for us as a country, I think. And we are really going to be tested as citizens to decide at what point are we going to say enough is enough and demand that the people who are in power, who do work for us, they seem to forget that they still work for us, we the people, and I don't know what it's going to take. I mean, the Democrats are killing me right now. I mean, some are out here trying to do yeoman's work and fire up the base and get people to understand what's happening, because the mainstream media is covering this as if this is some normal first 100 days of a new administration, and just, well, they're just shaking it up a little bit. Or, I'm like, they should have chyrons every day that say constitutional crisis.
That's right.
America in crisis. Like, this is insanity. And the CBS News poll that came out over the weekend that pissed me off about how 53% of the American people approve of what Donald Trump is doing. I'm like, who are these?
Bullshit poll.
Yeah. But also in that same poll, Tara, a majority of Americans are deeply concerned that Trump doesn't care about the lowering of prices.
Right. It's so contradictory. It's like, and then you have the Pew poll that says 47% approval. Even that's too high. Okay. What's happening is a mass dismantling and decapitation of our federal government. And it has nothing to do with affordability. It has nothing to do with taking care of the average American. It has nothing to do with government efficiency. It has everything to do with Donald Trump not giving a shit because he's mailing it in, and he's sending Elon Musk and his Doge douchebags out here to go and infiltrate our government, steal our information, which is what they're doing every single day. They're stealing our information and stealing our government secrets, stealing the information concerning our payment system to Treasury. They have access to where our nuclear weapons are located, for God's sakes. How the hell does any of this have to do with making America great again? How does this have to do with the price of, fixing the price of eggs, which are now going to be, through the roof for the next year because of bird flu and other things, as prices of eggs are going up 20% and there's shortages, for God's sakes. But they're not talking about that. But the CBS poll, 53%, you also have to take into consideration that CBS, no longer a reliable source, they're in the middle of a merger. They just bent the knee to Trump. So, of course, they're going to put out skewed polls. And I hate to be so cynical, but that's the way it is. They bent the knee in advance. So, but the perception, again, because that's what we do at Seneca Project, right? We are a messaging organization. We are constantly trying to get people to understand what's happening and why. But the messaging out here is just that, well, they're shaking it up. And I cannot emphasize enough what is happening and how incredibly dangerous this is. Will our institutions hold? I ask myself that question every day, because it comes down to enforcement. The Democrats are relying now on the courts, that's kind of where it's supposed to go, right? Since they're failing as a line of defense right now, they're not using all of their levers of power to make this really difficult. They should be. I appreciate that they rallied around USAID. You and I all understand the importance of soft power and USAID's value. Unfortunately, the average American doesn't give a shit and they don't care. They want to know, they should be told every day that Elon Musk is stealing from us. He's stealing our information, but they're not doing that.
Sure, I'm gonna get to Elon. I'm gonna have you rant away on Elon because President Musk deserves it. But Danielle just dropped off for a quick second. Before we move on, and real quick, we were talking about the institutions, you're talking about the courts.
Yeah.
Norm, Supreme Court. These cases are going to go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has a 6-3 conservative majority. I'm worried because this is the same Supreme Court in the summer that gave, let's be honest, Donald absolute immunity for his core executive functions, one of the most broad mandates ever given to a president. Also, let's be honest, a get out of jail free card. Your worries, your fears, or are you hopeful that maybe, just maybe, that Judge Roberts and maybe one other of these conservative justices might come around and say, you know what, we'll hold Donald in check? Or do you think that Supreme Court, which is that final check stop, is going to fail us?
I will say, Waj, that I have a little more faith in Amy Coney Barrett than I do in John Roberts.
Interesting.
I've heard that before.
I think John Roberts is a complete opportunist, and he lied in his confirmation hearings when he said he wanted to move away from narrow partisan decisions. Then they were 5-4 to 8-1 or 9-0. And he said that the way to do that is both to respect stare decisis, previous rulings, and to decide cases on as narrow a basis as possible. And one of the first things he did was to take the Citizens United case, which was by the plaintiffs, Citizens United, designed in a very narrow way, what's called in the parlance as applied. So it was only to give Citizens United the ability in some fashion or another to use their documentary going after Hillary Clinton. And he broadened it to basically blow up 150 years of campaign finance regulation. And we've seen it over and over again. I don't trust Roberts as far as I can throw him.
Nope.
Barrett is no question on the extreme right. But I believe from a number of rulings that she's made, that she really tries to be more intellectually honest. And it not always, but she, I think, is in that category. Kavanaugh is a little bit more of which way the wind is blowing. But, you know,
What
you're
about
absolutely
Gorsuch?
right. And the problem is that this lunatic unitary executive theory, which would make the president a king, and he's already moving in that direction, is on the docket, and it could easily be accepted. And the immunity decision, which is totally divorced from anything in our history or what the framers intended, these people who are supposed to be strict constructionists and
originalists.
What a bunch of crap. And, you know, for Thomas and Alito, and certainly more often than not for Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, it's what do I want to have as an outcome? And that's what we're going to do. So you can't be certain as to how all of this will go, but it makes one nervous. What I will also say, Waj, is if the Supreme Court got any integrity overall and you know, went back against Trump in some of these cases, Donald Trump is more likely than not to say, going back to Andrew Jackson's likely made up comment, well, the Supreme Court said that, screw them, I'm going to do what I want to do, and what are they going to do about it? And that's the problem that we face right now. And I would say one other problem that we face is with him having full immunity, when these lower court judges get defied by Trump and Musk and the others, they don't have the ability, for example, to hold Trump in contempt.
That's right.
In criminal contempt. Now, they could hold all the others in criminal contempt. And of course, if they do, Donald Trump will pardon them. So we are in a very bad place.
It's a very bad place. And speaking about this quid pro quo corrupt Trump administration, we'll get into this a bit later if we have time. But Eric Adams went and bent the knee to Mar-a-Lago, and breaking news as of last night, the Justice Department is looking into drop-in corruption cases.
Of course they are.
Of course they are. And as we're flooding the zone with shit, which is a Steve Bannon strategy from about a decade ago, where he said you just blitzkrieg them, right? Overwhelm them. He understands U.S. media. He says they can't pay attention, right?
He calls it muzzle velocity. Muzzle velocity.
Exactly. As this is happening, and this is where we get to Musk, because I know Tara's been waiting. We have President Elon Musk. I call him President Elon Musk, the richest man on earth, who bought the presidency, folks, for it seems like $290 million, which is essentially like me going to dollar store and like spending $20. That's what it is. It's nothing. And as these constitutional crises have been piling up and up and up, Elon Musk with his Doge team, which, folks, thanks to a fantastic Wired article, is a bunch of kids aged 19 to 25, 6 kids ages 19 to 25, who now have access to sensitive confidential data, all the financial data in the Treasury Department. They have access to your social security numbers, and they are going to make government efficient by taking out, Medicaid and Meals on Wheels and USAID, and now Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which has saved Americans billions of dollars. And before we get into how Musk is trying to dismantle the administrative state, what I call an administrative coup, I think we have to use these words, constitutional crisis.
I've been calling it a digital coup.
Digital coup, administrative coup. Tara has a video. She's been waiting. So Tara, do we have the video? Mercedes, can we play the video? Mercedes, give me thumbs up.
There's a shadow president in Washington.
Sitting behind the resolution.
And we didn't elect this guy. He wants us to believe he's a self-made man. That he made his billions through hard work and his so-called genius.
He didn't invent the
SpaceX explosion.
But the truth is, he mooched off the American taxpayer.
Pronounced subsidies.
Our money. And he's too arrogant to admit the free ride that we have been giving him. Republicans used to attack folks living off government assistance, calling them welfare queens. But it was all a myth. The real welfare queen is Elon Musk.
We gave him all his money.
And he's coming for more. Our Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, our jobs, our private information, our livelihoods, our safety. And Donald Trump is letting him.
Is there anything you've told Elon Musk he cannot touch?
Well, we haven't discussed that much.
Don't be fooled. This isn't about making government work better for you. It's about making America work for him. Are we going to stand back and stand by and let this happen? Hey, Congress, we're talking to you too. You work for us. Do your job and stop this now.
All right, Tara, was that your voice narrating?
No, that is my co-founder and chief creative officer, Michelle Kinney, who is fabulous. She is the one, we worked on the script together. We wrote it in about 45 minutes after we saw the Time magazine article and got our editors involved. But Michelle is multi-talented. She also can do voiceover. So that was her. And we just felt that, first of all, no one else is doing this. No other PACs like ours are going after Elon and Congress and Trump and everyone to tell people that what's going on here and hold them accountable. This freaking guy is the richest guy in the world because he mooched off our money. Our tax dollars saved his ass when his companies were failing. And people don't realize this. They think he's some boy genius. He's not. And he comes from apartheid South Africa and he's a racist. So he's supporting disrupting and dismantling democracy around the world. Look what he's doing in Germany. This is not just happening here. So he really represents a threat that I think a lot of Americans, when they voted for Donald Trump, thinking that, oh, we're going to run it like a business. Like, I was a Republican for years. We used to say that all the time, right? Well, the government should be run like a business. That's why we liked Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney was a great businessman. He can go in, he can, fix some things, run it more efficiently. This ain't that. Okay. This is not that. And
this is a coup.
This is a
an
digital
administrative
coup, because none of what they're doing has anything to do with making anything better. It has to do with, like we said in that video, it's about making America work for him. And that includes Donald Trump and every one of us who are held hostage by this maladjusted man-child who is running around using American government as his playground. And we need to do something to get him extricated out of that. What that is, it has to be pressure so that people know what he's doing. Republicans are lockstep in their messaging that this is all about government efficiency. They were on the Sunday shows with their line of attack, all on the same page. Well, what's wrong with, look at all of these examples of this waste and abuse and, lying about condoms to Hamas and bullshit like that. And there's
Tara, can we just say, to correct the record for Truth Sandwich?
Yeah, it's a lie.
They're so ignorant. They spread the lie of millions of dollars of condoms going to Gaza, but Levitt didn't realize it wasn't Gaza in the Middle East. It was Gaza, Mozambique.
Yeah. Well,
can't make this shit up. Sorry,
listen,
continue.
look, but this is what they do. It doesn't matter. They flood the zone with bullshit and lies, and then there isn't a coordinated effort on the other side to push back or to go on offense. There needs to be some offense here. It can't be in a defensive crouch the whole time. I always say defense wins championships, like on Sunday, but offense wins elections and offense wins politics. So we're trying to do our part with trying to go on offense, but the other side's got to do it. I mean, these people with talk radio and all their ecosystem, I just got an alert that some hillbilly talk radio guy in Wisconsin accused me and the Seneca Project of being a, quote, a big Soros-backed think tank. That goes to show you that these people know nothing about anything. They just spew nonsense. We're not backed by George Soros. We're not a think tank, and we're not big. So they got it all wrong, but it doesn't matter. They're out there telling their people this, and they get it from multiple places, all the same. So you wonder why. So we've got to push back against it.
Tara, you're talking about offense. You're talking about how they flood the zone. You're talking about how we need resistance, how we need people to fight back. That's a fantastic video. Danielle, speaking about Democrats finally fighting back, we're seeing women step up. And speaking about women stepping up, here's a slide from Elizabeth Warren, Senator Warren. She helped create the CFPB, folks, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which, by the way, has saved Americans $21 billion, right? From money lenders, from banks, from credit card companies. And Elon Musk, of course, President Musk, has gone after this administrative body. He's going after anyone or anything with the consonants and letters like SEC, FTC, CFPB that can hold the rich accountable. Your take on the resistance and what you're seeing now, because Elizabeth Warren was out there yesterday, Danielle. She led a protest. She's using her voice. You're seeing judges come up and do what they can do. Jasmine Crockett has been out in the front. What type of fire, what type of fight, what type of offensive heat do you want to see from Democrats? And do you think Elizabeth Warren doing what she did yesterday is finally waking the Democrats up?
I mean, here's the thing. My feeling is this. One, that I appreciate all of the individual Democrats like coming out and using their platform. But what we've been calling for at least the last friggin' decade is a coordinated offense, right? Is coordination. It could look like what the January 6th committee was able to do and was able to put together. You see who has the largest following in your party, whether you're in the House or you're in the Senate. You organize them based on what are the issues that they're going to tackle? What part of this are they going to take on? And then you create, a fucking war room. And you do a communications like deep dive into crisis communications. Everyone has their roles. They have their topics. They're sent out in force on social media, on cable news, on all of the media outlets. And you're doing coordination. It's not rocket science. Right. And yet, for some reason, here we are 9 years into Trumpism, and they still haven't managed what to do. And it's because, frankly, I'm going to be honest, Democrats really as a whole can't be trusted. You had 40 something Democrats that voted with Republicans on the Riley Act, right? The Immigration Act. You have Democrats that say, "Oh, I'm in a tough district, so I have to vote with Republicans." Then why the fuck do you have a D behind your name? Right? Like, let's stop allowing these quote unquote moderates and centrists to come in and then dictate the terms of operation, because we know that a majority of the time they're going to link arms with the Republicans. What we need is a coordinated strategy. What we need are leaders that are not trying to eat the whole pie, but take their section and blow it up for the public. That's what we need to be going around. I don't know what these septuagenarians and octogenarians are doing, but frankly, I'm over it, as largely is the public, right? We've been waiting for Democrats for some time to wake up out of their sleepy haze and recognize that their colleagues from across the aisle would rather place a target on their back than actually work with them on behalf of the American people. So can we stop pretending and have coordination and an actual strategy if we are to dig ourselves out of the rubble of the explosion of our democracy? I don't fucking know, but I feel like I'm going to be sitting here holding my breath, or at least running my blood pressure up until it happens.
God bless it, Danielle Rant. And, you did mention something about the war room. I want to remind people that during the insurrection, the failed insurrection, Republicans actually had a war room for the insurrection at the Willard Hotel. And what we're witnessing right now, folks, is almost like an ad hoc strategy. Elizabeth Warren's doing her thing. Jasmine Crockett's doing her thing. AOC is doing her thing. But Chuck Schumer is getting aroused and talking about people getting aroused, right? And we love our septuagenarians. We're not ageist. One of my favorites is Norm. And Norm, to bull on all this. You like that? That's why they pay me the big money in these.
I have to tell you, Waj, as a septuagenarian, I'm happy every time I get aroused.
And that's the show, folks. Thanks for coming. Give us your tips.
I was make a joke about Chuck Schumer and that, but I kept it to myself. But Norm took it.
Yeah, we can't beat that one. But I want to bring it back full circle and put a pin on it as we move on to the next topic with this following really disturbing article that came out last night. But you really didn't even need the article. You just had to pay attention. Trump is openly, folks, increasingly talking about staying in office for a third term. He has done it numerous times. Just 8 days into his second term, he joked about it, right? Staying in office beyond 2029, despite the 22nd Amendment's two-term limit. He's talked about it before the election. He talked about it during his first term. And also, speaking about complicit reeks and minions within the Republican Party, Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and Representative Andy Ogles of Tennessee have publicly called for amending the Constitution to allow Trump to run again. Andy Ogles of Tennessee even introduced a proposal to let presidents with non-consecutive terms like Donald seek a third term. I believed, Norm, I've been saying this for a couple of years, take Trump literally and seriously. I believe most of us here in 2018, 2019 were initially ridiculed when we said Donald will not leave peacefully. I hated being right about that. I believe I'm right about this, Norm. I don't think he's going to leave. Your take.
So, first of all, Andy Ogles is another one of those who basically doctored his resume. He is a serial liar. Put that aside. My guess is that the route for Trump is not a constitutional amendment, which would not make it through. It's martial law.
Yeah.
And we have already seen the steps moving in that direction. And every time Trump muses about these things, you know that he means it. This is not idle chatter. Where he has lied in those musings is when he said, I'll be a dictator on day one, when in fact he's been a dictator on every single day that he has been president, doing things that are lawless, doing things that are defiant of all the other institutions, knowing that the courts were not likely to be able to enforce any actions against him, and knowing that he had a Congress in his pocket. I want to go back for a minute to Danielle's call it a rant, call it whatever we want.
Sermon.
Back in the back in an earlier era, when Dick Gephardt was the majority leader in the House, he put together something called a message group. And they would get together every morning to try and coordinate a message in the House. And that message was one that they would take in the morning when they had opportunities to speak at length. They would do it during the course of the day in every way they could. They would do it in the evening in the special orders. And it makes a difference. We don't have that kind of coordination in the House right now, despite multiple efforts to get it. In the Senate, one of the first pieces I wrote for the Contrarian was talking about all of the things that a minority in the Senate can do to bollocks up the works. And that includes forcing a reading of the journal every day, which is normally done away with by unanimous consent. Forcing the Senate not to be able to hold committee hearings during most of the time when the Senate is in session by denying unanimous consent, putting blanket holds on all of these nominees, and holds on individual ones. And let me say that one of the things Trump did in his first term was to use and abuse the Vacancies Act, where he couldn't get people confirmed for key posts. He was able to take somebody who'd been confirmed for a meaningless post or a less meaningful post, move them in an acting fashion, and keep them there for a period of time. You do not want to confirm the people who are at the second and third and fourth levels of executive nominations. And you want to put holds on every one of them, and you want to force them to go through all of those hoops and take up all of the time on the Senate floor. And obviously, you want to filibuster everything that you can. And the response that I've gotten, a few Democrats in the Senate have said, we're with you, but, and the but is Chuck wants to protect the Democrats who are up in 2026. The response to that is, if you don't do some of this stuff, there won't be an election in 2026. And not only that, if we are able to put a spotlight on the horrors that they're doing, the Republicans who are up, who seemingly are in safe seats, are going to have to think twice about it. And the wind will be blowing in a different direction. So you're not going to have to worry about your Democrats who are up unless your response is utterly feckless or meaningless. I've now done this piece that I put in in our chat that is about the House. And it really is with this narrow margin. There is absolutely no reason for House Democrats to provide a single vote for anything that Republicans want. And that includes their appropriations bills, their budgets, the reconciliation bill, and a debt ceiling increase.
Amen. Amen. Danielle and I have been preaching this for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. If they offer you some kind of deal on spending, and you put out what you need to do is put out a series of reasonable demands, and which they're not going to be able to meet, and so that it's clear that they are the ones responsible if in fact we end up with a government shutdown, which will come in exactly a month, and for potentially the default on our full faith and credit in the United States. The fact is, they're moving on their own towards a default. A default means that no one can trust you to make payments. When you put a freeze on all of the spending, including grants that have already been approved, when you basically decide that you are going to violate the law by putting a 15% limit on overhead for medical research, you are already casting doubt on whether the United States credit and faith can be taken at their word. So you need to play hardball with this and force them to act in a different way. And I'll just make one other point. They're already trying to deal with this. You may have noticed Byron Donalds, one of the most vile people around, was out in California to do the Bill Maher show. And somebody voted for him while he was in California at least twice, took his voting card, voted twice. you may remember that House Republicans refused to allow
Proxy vote.
absentee voting for a Democratic member who was having a baby, just for that period of time when she could not make it back to vote. And now they're violating their own rules. I want House Democrats to introduce a censure resolution against Byron Donalds. There's proof that he wasn't there when he voted. He put up pictures of him during that time with Bill Maher.
You have to admire the corruption.
Story. But we need to make sure that if they try and evade all of this by having members who aren't there vote illicitly, that it's all on the record. And we need House Democrats to step up to the plate. And Danielle is right. The recalcitrants in doing most of this in party unity are not the members of the squad.
It's the old timers, folks.
No, it's not even the old timers. It's the Jared Goldens of the world who are on the right of the Democratic Party, who don't want to do any of the kinds of things that involve hardball. And they got to keep everybody in line because we're in an existential moment.
Norm, that was a fantastic sermon. And read Norm's piece in The Contrarian. Play hardball, Democrats. And I want to really shift to this topic because it's not just domestic. This type of obscene, unconstitutional, illegal, I would say inhumane cruelty of the Trump administration.
Yeah.
What we saw, Danielle, what we were promised with Donald Trump was America first. America first was to make not only America great again, but for many Republican voters, it's about, hey, concentrate on America, don't mess around abroad. Every president, whether Republican or Democrat, has committed themselves to a two-state solution in Gaza. In Gaza, what we've seen over the past 17 months, according to Amnesty International, a genocide, 45,000 people, probably more, have been killed. We've seen these Palestinians try to get back to their home. And Donald Trump is the first president in the history of the United States of America who not only has blown up the two-state or any peace deal, but now he has said that he proposes, the America First president proposes that the United States should, quote, own them, permanently relocate 2.2 million Palestinian residents to Jordan and Egypt. That, folks, is ethnic cleansing. And he claims they would receive, quote, much better housing elsewhere, and they no longer have the right to return. Just yesterday, Trump said in a Fox News interview that he would consider withholding U.S. aid from Jordan, that's about $1.7 billion, and Egypt, about $1.5 billion, if they refused to accept displaced Palestinians. We've seen Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, France, Britain, everyone say, no, this is terrible, recommit to the two-state solution. But Donald doesn't really care about that. We have a clip. Mercedes, let all hell break loose. Mercedes.
As far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out. I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday, and if they're not returned, all of them, not in drips and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2. Saturday at 12 o'clock.
I just want people to know that he's blowing up his own peace deal that he took credit for last week. Danielle.
I mean, here are the facts. You know, we keep referring to Donald Trump as a president, which I think legitimizes him. And he's not. He's not acting like a president. He doesn't believe in the Constitution. He can't even spell the word. And so when he looks and he sees Gaza, all he sees is a real estate opportunity and for his family and himself to grift and build more wealth. He is using the threats of tariffs like mobsters use the threats of getting your kneecaps hit if you don't pay, right? The whole goal here is to blow up American Western alliances, as was said earlier, right? To make to create this new colonization 2.0, where we just go around and we start, manifest destiny all over again, and just going into places and picking them off and naming them as America, from the Gulf of America to Gaza to Canada, to Greenland. And, you can see by the way that Donald Trump is moving, by the way that the world is reacting, is that America is no longer seen as a stable country. It's no longer seen as a leader in the world. I think it was somebody yesterday in a report came out of maybe it was Munich, that was just like, yeah, America is unstable, and the rest of the world is now going to have to figure out how to operate without America, which they should have figured out back in 2016 or 2017 when Donald Trump came into office. And so, unless the rest of the world unites, right? And is going to call Donald Trump's bluff, and is going to like link arms and essentially signal that America is no longer a dealer on the world stage. Like, we're just going to see these threats escalate until they escalate into actual war, because that's where all of this is headed. Right? Like, how long do you think that you're going to be able to pressure, right, Jordan, Egypt, before they link arms with other Middle Eastern countries and other places? There's an entire reformulation of these axes that are happening, that we told people were going to happen if Donald Trump became president again.
We said he'd be worse on this issue. Norm said it. Tara said it. I said it.
I mean, we've been saying this, and so here it is now, happening in real time. And what folks don't understand is that Donald Trump, with every single threat that he makes, is making us less and less safe. It is becoming increasingly likely, right, that we enter into some type of physical conflict with these nations, right? And that they're his threats on Gaza and buying Gaza like outright, as if it again is a piece on a monopoly board, is alarming, and it won't stop. These people, Donald Trump, they are insatiable, and they will not stop until they are stopped. And my fear moving forward for America is we might as well understand that we are allyless, or at least, I guess, our new ally is Russia, until Putin gets everything that he needs from Donald Trump, and then it's on to the next thing. But we're incredibly unsafe, as are the people of Gaza. So for those that abstained because they didn't want to vote in 2024, because they couldn't find it in their hearts to do it, bravo, well done.
Tara, real quick, we have 9 minutes. I want to get you and Norman this, but with America First, a lot of these, Republican voters, a lot of these Republican voters, especially the ones who voted for Donald, they don't want this. They don't want boots on the ground,
right?
Whether it's in Canada as our 51st state, which Donald reiterated yesterday. Canada, by the way, is our ally. And also last night, new tariffs, folks, which are taxes on Canadian steel. So guess who's going to pay for it? You all are.
25%.
He wants to take over the Panama Canal. He renamed Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America.
Greenland. CNN just did a special segment on how people in Greenland feel about Trump wanting to take them over too. Look, this is something that, again, it's not just here, and it's not just about Trump wanting his wet dream of having resorts in Gaza with his name on it. It is, that region could potentially blow up.
Yeah.
And then what, right? The King of Jordan is here in the U.S. visiting right now. Jordan has a shit ton of Palestinians over there, and and folks that they are in the immediate vicinity here of having to take on this. And foreign policy experts are talking about how this could turn some of that world and those folks against their own leadership. It could take out the King of Jordan. It could take out there could be another intifada. This is really, really dangerous stuff. And when Trump first announced this whole cockamamie thing about going into Gaza and owning it, the first thing I said, I put it out on the tweet immediately, was, Trump people explain to me how this is America first.
That's
I'll
right.
wait, because it's not. That whole America first thing is just a marketing slogan for a con man who wants to use the power of the American government and military to go do his little fantasies and whatever he wants around the world. It's actually, he's an imperialist. There's nothing about, he's not an isolationist, he's an imperialist.
Yep.
And he held that in during the first term because there were people around him that were like, not no, but hell no. At least there were some good folks. Now, all those people are gone. So he's got his own little imperialist stormtroopers around him, from Stephen Miller and, you know, the idiots over there in the State Department and the Department of Defense, using our government to go and conquer whoever they want for whatever reasons. And all of this benefits not America.
Nope.
It benefits, to Danielle's point, Putin and China, right? Putin and Xi Jinping. China and Russia, our arch enemies, who are filling the vacuum of the loss of America as a superpower and our soft power. And this whole, like, that's again back to the USAID thing. Unfortunately, most Americans don't care, but they should, because USAID is a powerful tool that keeps America in the good graces around the world, because the people thought they could count on us for, you know, to help them with food and medicine and rebuilding things and keep, you know, and all that's gone. Right. Soft power combined with our hard power, which is our military, which now, as I'm sure folks are beginning to hear, that the military is now no longer recruiting people of color and women. They actually pulled out of a prestigious Black engineering conference where they have a presence every year to recruit the best of the best to the Army. Nope, we're not doing that anymore. It's DEI. Like, they're diminishing us everywhere around.
I'd like to see how our military will function without people of color
or women
and women. So
I mean, I don't want to see that. I hear you on that, but I hear you, and there's a part of me that's like, well, we all need to suffer. Then you pay the price. You don't change until you pay enough of a price. But I also worry what that like. That price is too high for us to pay to fuck around with it. So I'm like, I'm with you, Danielle. I'm on the fence with that. I'm like, no. If we get to that point, then who's gonna invade this? They could invade us. I don't know. Or
exactly.
Sarah and Danielle,
exactly.
You know, you mentioned this, the suffering. We all suffer. The self-destructive tendency of greed, of racism, of imperialism, of Netanyahu, of Trump. You know, Norm, I don't think people realize, you know, that this is not going to make America great again. This is not going to make Israel great again. This is not going to make Jews, Muslims, Arabs great again. This is a recipe of self-destruction for the greed and ambition of two supremacists, Trump and Netanyahu. Your thoughts?
So I think greed is a good word to use here, because as a general matter, it's all about the grift. For Trump, Gaza is about having Trump resorts on the waterfront with casinos and condos.
Beachfront properties, according to Kushner.
And it's about Kushner and his family being able to put up their own buildings. We know that as Elon Musk is operating, the first thing he wanted to do was to eviscerate or get rid of agencies or entities that were investigating Tesla and SpaceX.
Correct.
For employment discrimination, vile racism, and grift. So we start with all of that. What I fear more than anything else is that a lot of what he's doing is going to get a backlash from the people who thought that blowing up government wouldn't hurt them at all because they have no idea what government does for them. Who will suddenly see prices skyrocket and disease become rampant, and then realize what the federal government does for them. Who will have violent storms and not be able to get the access that they want or need. And Trump's response to that is going to be declaring martial law. And and using violence. And the fact is, the pardons of the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys and the others who were violent, even as he and his minions, including those in Congress, try to completely erase that history, is basically to call out have a vigilante force that he can use in conjunction with the military.
His own red shirts, Norm.
Yeah. What Tara
brown
mentioned
shirts.
about not going to this conference tells you something very important. They say that it's not about DEI, it's about merit. What a bunch of horse shit.
Bullshit.
You want merit, that's where you go, where you have the best, the brightest. They want to bleed our institutions of the best and brightest people of color and bring in the mediocre, untrained, inexperienced white boys who go along with everything that they want. Now,
Norm said it, folks, not Tara and Danielle. Norm said it.
Yes. I mean, we've been saying it, but Norm is saying it today, and that he's 100% right. I tweeted this out and blue skied it out, or whatever it's called. I said they are purging the military of anyone who is not a white Christian straight male. And people fail up all the time. Like, we are sick and tired of the mediocrity of these white dudes that are so threatened by the excellence of those of us of color and women. They are threatened by us. And this is why, because God forbid someone's better than them. Why would they try to erase Tuskegee Airmen and the history of? Why are they trying to take away Black History Month and Women's History Month? And they've taken down on the websites the women's accomplishments in the military and Black folks' accomplishments in the military, because God forbid they actually find out that y'all aren't the best all the time.
And changing the names of the bases back to Confederate slave owners and generals.
But
I want to make one final comment, Waj,
real quick, Norm,
which is simply to give a hug to Mary, who I know is with friends and with some of the best people around. And please get better, Mary. Your voice, your force is so important for all of us. Waj did a great job today. He is good at this. We need you back.
But I'm Norm. Basically, that's Norm saying,
not Mary.
Come back quick. Come back quick. Real quick, to finish this off, despite their attempts to erase us, despite their attempts to silence us, despite their attempts to have us bend the knee, people of color, Black folks, women, the undesirables, the critics in this country have always found a way to write our own story. We go up, we go down, we maneuver, we go through the cracks, we resist. And I want to end this show on a hopeful note, because, folks, resistance isn't just fretting and sweating and crying and being upset. That is not enough to sustain long-term growth. It is not enough to sustain a marriage, a relationship, a family. You need love, you need hope, you need joy. And I want to talk about joyful resistance and end on a note of joyful resistance in February, which is Black History Month. And Danielle, I want to give you the final word. When it came to Kendrick Lamar and the super blackety black halftime show of all time.
Yeah, I will just say that, look, I've said this many times on the Danielle Moody Show and on our show on Democracy-ish, that resistance looks a number of ways. There is many different ways to resist as there are people. And what Kendrick Lamar offered, as well as Lettucey, John Baptiste, those amazing, brilliant Black performers. But what Kendrick Lamar offered was what artful resistance looks like. It looks like showing the American flag disjointed on the backs of Black men, right? Like, that's what that was depicting. It looks like showing that America is one big game that we don't even know that we're in by performing on a large handheld remote control. It looks like having Samuel L. Jackson as telling you to not be too loud, to not be too bold, to not be too ghetto. Don't take up too much space. It was a elegant and exquisite articulation of the American struggle and Black excellence.
Serena Williams.
You know, and Serena Williams coming out. I mean, the levels of petty. One, her crip walk that she did after winning the Olympics was her standing in a body that has been critiqued, ridiculed, harassed, and nearly killed because of a white supremacist, medical system when she was pregnant with her first daughter. Like, we have to own who we are as a people. We have to own our platforms and own our voices, and not fall prey to the government, to Uncle Sam right now, that is telling us that there is no hope, there is no light, and we have no power. And Kendrick Lamar said, nah, it's time to squabble up. So I loved it. I appreciated it. It will give me fuel for the rest of this year because I'm going to play it on replay. But I tell people, resistance looks any of the ways that you want it to look, but you need to find your way to resist.
And we resist on the Nerd Avengers. We use our voice. We use our platform. We love talking to you and our community of nearly 30,000 folks who joined us today. Be joyful warriors. Find hope, find love, find comfort, and find community, even if it's one person. This is going to be a long walk, folks. They're coming for everything. But as we saw during the Super Bowl with Kendrick Lamar's performance, you keep your eye on the ball, you keep your eye on the prize. The road to justice and equality doesn't come with a Hail Mary pass. In America, it's always been 1 yard here, 2 yards there. You just keep moving forward. And I'm grateful to Mary Trump for using her name, using her platform to create this show, to create this community, to bring together the Nerd Avengers. I'm grateful to Danielle Moody, host of the Danielle Moody Show and co-host of the Democracy Is Show. I'm grateful to Norm, our favorite septuagenarian, emeritus scholar, AEI, co-host of Words Matter podcast, and also now a columnist at The Contrarian. And I'm grateful for Tara Setmeyer, former Republican, who's found the light, co-founder of and CEO of the Seneca Project, who came out with a fantastic, blistering ad against Elon Musk. We're on offense, folks, right? We don't cede the ground. We're moving forward, even if it's inch by inch, yard by yard. Thank you all for watching. Please, folks, like this, subscribe to Mary's channel, share it, ring the bell. Each time we go live, you'll be notified. For those people who are the super chatters who gave us donations, the $10, the $9, it goes a long way. Mary literally is not made of money. People think she's made of money. She is not. She's being sued by Donald. She does this out of love. We do this most of the time, on inshallah money. But we do it because we still believe in the inshallah that America can and will be better and will finally stretch and expand and include the rest of us DEIs who it has tried to erase. But we're still here, folks, and we'll be back on Thursday, 12 p.m. live. Until next time, take care, be safe, and don't be a fascist.